All right, I believe we are going. We are live. Oh, here we go. Now we're ready. Okay. Hello, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about the myth, okay, because this is a big myth, the myth that is perpetuated in our spirituality, self-help, personal growth world a lot, that tells us that in order to be a good person, in order to be a loving person, in order to be a truly empathic person, we need to learn how to love harmful people. Love people who are maybe acting in their pain. We need to love them enough so that they change and that they heal. That we need to be the kind of people who are different from everybody else and who can understand that hurt people, that the real reason people are abusive or mean or, you know, that act in ways that aren't loving and that aren't how we would want to be treated or how we would consider someone who is nice acts is because they are hurt, because they were traumatized, because they were abused in some way. And that, again, in order to be a truly spiritual person, in order to be a truly good person, in order to be someone who can consider themselves an empath, you have to be the kind of person who loves them anyways, who sees through their pain, who sees through their trauma, and shows up for them with love and compassion and understanding at all times and at all places. And that if you don't do this, that you are somehow not fulfilling your purpose, that you're not being a truly empathic person, that you're not contributing to the world we all want to live in when we're all love and light and, in alignment, and that it makes you a bad person if you don't essentially tolerate abuse and tolerate being treated poorly because you understand that the reason someone might be abusive or the reason someone might be treating you poorly is not because they are actually bad or wrong or evil or sinful on the inside, but because you understand that they are hurting and they are traumatized and they got taught how to be that way. And then you believe that your love and your acceptance and your validation is going to be the thing that transforms them. And then this idea that, the more you are this way, the more you're loving, the more you're compassionate, the more you see people for where they are and why they are the way they are, that the more you're going to change the world. And that this is how we change the world. That you have to be compassionate, that you have to be completely allowing everyone to be who and what they are right now. And that if you aren't, that you are a part of the problem. Okay, this is a big part of the message that we tend to get in the spirituality, self-help, and personal growth community, and not everywhere, not from everyone, right? Like there is definitely a a big movement right now in the self-help, spirituality, and personal growth world towards boundaries and understanding that we are not here to just completely sacrifice ourselves for other people and that that's not how we're going to build a better world. And I'm not the only one talking about this, but I feel like this is just a huge thing to talk about, especially because I know that a lot of the people who are here and a lot of the people who listen to the work that I put out are truly, deeply, very empathic people and very soft-hearted and very kind and the kind of people who really can and do see that people who are behaving badly, that people who are abusive, that people who are not capable of acting from a place of love and maturity are themselves hurting. Yes? Because, like, I know from the very, very beginning of my life, I was the kind of person who absolutely did let everyone walk all over me. I let anyone treat me however they wanted to treat me. Because, and again, I know that a lot of people could look at that and say, like, you had poor self-esteem and you didn't love yourself and all these things. But for me, in my experience, what it actually felt like was I could see, like, I could absolutely physically, mentally, emotionally understand that they were in pain. That it wasn't even something that had been taught to me. It wasn't something that someone told me, this is how you should be because they are in pain and they are not actually bad. It was very obvious to me that they weren't bad and that they weren't horrible and that they weren't deserving of my rejection. And in fact, I was often told, like, why do you put up with these people? Why do you keep trying to be friends with these people? Why do you keep allowing these people to walk all over you? And my answer was always like, because they're hurting. And because I can see what's going on in their home, and I can see what's going on with their parents, and I can see what's going on in their life, and I can't abandon them. I can't be the one who's going to walk away from them, no matter how they treat me, no matter how they talk to me, no matter what they do. I just had this like bleeding heart of, but they're hurting. And everyone else abandons them. And everyone else is not me, like not nice. And I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to just be another person who rejects them and tells them that they're shitty and you're hurting me, so like F you. Like, I just didn't have it in me to do that. And like I said, it was very much coming from like this place inside myself that I felt like, no, like I want to save them with my love. I need to save them. So I definitely had like savior complex, and we're going to talk about that. And but there was just this deep sense inside of me that like it's not their fault. They're not doing it on purpose. And I don't want to abandon them. I don't want to treat them the same way that everyone else treats them. I don't want to be another person that convinces them that the world is hard and the world is shitty and everyone's going to abandon you. And you have to be hard and you have to be mean and you have to be like this in order to survive. Because that's like what I was seeing as a child. It was like everyone's behaving this way because everyone's behaving this way, right? Like if I am to be like everyone else, if I'm to abandon them and tell them that they're shitty and tell them that they're hurting my feelings and all of this stuff, then I'm just no better than anybody else. And I'm perpetuating the reason they're acting this way. Like, that was my whole thinking. I can't abandon them. I don't want to be like everyone else. And the reason they are like this is because everyone is so mean and everyone is so just out for themselves and everyone just abandons everybody. And so like no wonder everyone just treats each other like shit, because everyone treats each other like shit. And I just didn't want to be like that. So I understand that, again, I think for a lot of us, even if we weren't being told by our spirituality, self-help, and personal growth material that you need to be the bigger person, that you need to be loving, that you need to show up for these people and be nice and do all of these things, I think a lot of us would still be doing it anyways, because we genuinely feel that way. Like we are watching the pattern that the more we reject each other, the more we're harsh on each other, the more we're mean to each other, the more we're mean to each other, and the more we're harsh on each other, and the more people become like that and behave like that and live like that. And it's a cycle, right? It's a cycle of hurt people hurting people. And so, of course, we can get into this territory of feeling like the only way to change this, the only way to shift the way that humanity is going and the way that we treat each other and the way that we act and the way that we live is to be different. We have to be loving. We have to be empathic. We have to be the kind of people who see through people's abusive behavior and their shitty ways of being. And we need to be the kind of people that love them anyways. And oftentimes, again, we're not even like convincing ourselves of this. We do love them anyways. We really actually do. Like there is just something in our heart where we are like, yeah, but I love them anyways. I see them through their pain. I see them through their behavior. And I really actually love them anyways. I want to help. I want to be there for them. I want to be on their side. Okay, so there's that element of it. There's absolutely the just genuine, this is my heart. This is how I feel when I interact with people. And I don't have it in me to just abandon somebody or to just be like, well, you're just shitty. And so I'm not going to deal with you. We just don't have it in us because we actually genuinely do love people. And we see their pain. And we see why they are the way that they are. And we don't want to be like everybody else. We don't want to be the next person that just hurt them like that. Okay, so there's that element. And I want to validate that and I want to acknowledge that it's not always something we were even taught. I do truly believe that a lot of us are born this way. We are very much born, or even if we're taught, right? Like we exist on a level where we just do actually love people. And we're not just doing it because we're told. And we're not just doing it because it's a spiritual teaching. But it's naturally who we are. Okay, so there's that. Then there's the spiritual teaching side, right? There's I thought we were taught this in kindergarten. And like we are taught, treat other people the way you want to be treated, right? Like spirituality, self-help, personal growth, manners, like we're taught these things. But most people do not live it, right? Most people do not live the golden rule of treat others the way you want to be treated. We know this, right? And again, for those of us who are just truly empathic, we're not surprised by that. And we see it and we get it because we live in a world that is so ridiculously harsh. We absolutely live in a world where most people, like I said, are living from a place of just, I am out for me. And I think, again, people live this way because of the society we live in. We are trained from day one, right? There are the words that we are told, treat people with kindness, be nice to each other, da-da-da-da-da. There are those words we are told. But what we are actually taught, what we are actually modeled by our caregivers, by society in general, is not treat people how you want to be treated at all. If we look at how society functions, if we look at how we are taught through behavior to act, we are taught you are out for yourself. We are taught get what you can get from everyone around you. We are taught that people are expendable, that we are not to acknowledge each other's humanity, that we are not here to be loving and cooperative and compassionate with each other. What we are taught through action, through what we actually live, is that it's eat or be eaten. How our society is actually functioning right now is purely based on the competition model. We're created to be a society of sociopaths. Literally, I believe this to be true. I don't feel like that is as big of an exaggeration as we want to believe that it It is. We are absolutely trained that there is no one who is going to be there for you. We are trained to see the world as this scary, harsh, again, if you are not fighting for yourself, if you are not doing what you need to do for yourself, whoever it affects, however it affects anybody, that you are going to lose, that you are not going to have your needs met, that you're not going to succeed, that no one's going to value you, that you're not a high value person. And we are taught that literally the definition of success is dominance. The definition of success in our society these days is to win, is to be on top, is to be the best, is to be an individual who did whatever you had to do to get to the top of whatever it is you're trying to do. You destroy whoever you need to destroy. You take down whoever you need to take down. You take advantage of whoever you need to take advantage of. And this is what we see over and over and over again when we look at the people who are truly at the top of their industry in our world. We are not finding a bunch of empathic, loving, gracious, generous people who just got there through being kind to everybody. Like, right? Like having Ellen DeGeneres get exposed as like not a very good person. Yeah, of course. Because you don't succeed. You don't succeed in our world through being the kind of person who treats others the way you want to be treated. You succeed by winning and dominating. Okay? And this is the society that we actually live in. Right? So we have our rules and our things that we say, and we have the things that we actually do. And the things we actually do, because again, if we look at how our society is actually set up, the people who are at the top of our system, who are determining and dictating to us what the rules of society are going to be and what the values of society should be, what the culture should be, this is what they're dictating. This is what they are saying. They are justifying their own presence at the top of the ladder by convincing all of us that this is how things should be, that this is what success is, that this is what makes you a good person in our society. Those who are at the top of the system got there through dominance. They got there through exploitation. They got there through all kinds of abuses of power and taking people down and being ruthless and being cutthroat and competitive, right? And literally setting up the society that we all live in to protect that. And creating a world where everyone else feels like they have to be that way in order to succeed. And truly, in a lot of ways, you do have to be that way in order to succeed. You really, actually do. So that's the world we actually live in. Is a world where when you are kind and you are compassionate and you are loving, you generally get walked all over. You generally you put yourself in a position where you're vulnerable. Because we don't live in a society that celebrates or protects the idea of being kind and compassionate. We are trained to value competition, dominance, and hierarchy, so that we won't look at those who are at the top of the system and say, hey, this is abusive and shitty. This is not what success should be. This is not how we have to live. But rather, we would condition and be conditioned and condition ourselves to go along with this shitty system so that they stay at the top and we keep fighting each other and fighting ourselves and passing down generational trauma and blaming the people who are traumatized and blaming the people who are acting out of being victimized and disenfranchised and being treated unfairly. And we blame them as the problem. We blame ourselves for not being tough enough. And we never look at the system and say, but why? Why do we all have to be like this? Why is this trauma continuing to happen over and over again? Why does society have to be set up in a way where we're all just like cutting each other down? And then those of us who do, you see what I'm saying? The empathic people, we tend to not look at the greater system. We tend to get lost in looking at individuals and looking at little communities and getting into navel-gazing territory where we continually blame ourselves that I'm just being treated shitty and I'm being walked all over because I have poor boundaries and I have poor self-esteem and it's because I don't love myself and I need to work on that. And then also, I need to be more loving, I need to be more compassionate, I need to be more kind. But that means that I have to be like the opposite of everyone else and let everyone walk all over me and let everyone be horrible because I can see their pain and I can see that they're traumatized by society and I can see that they're traumatized by their family and I can see all of these things. But I don't want to be like that. But then that sets us up to be abused. So what's the answer here? So what do we do? Right? This is the whole conundrum. So first things first, again, the second thing I want to validate and acknowledge is that we do not live in a world, you too, thank you, where it is safe to be an empathic person. We don't live in a world where it's safe to be the kind of people we are taught in our spirituality to be, and where it's generally safe to be the kind of people we want to be. Okay, there's that second validation. We live in a world where we are taught, and this is a generational trauma. This is a trauma that is being passed down every single generation. The trauma of living in a society that is dominant-based, that is competition-based, that pits us against ourselves, because that's another big thing. Another huge part of how the system perpetuates itself is making sure that we are in a continual state of self-hate. Making sure that we are in a continual state of self-rejection and believing that we are not good enough, we're not on trend enough, we're not popular enough, we don't have enough friends, we don't have enough success, so that we will, again, continue to blame ourselves for the pain that we're in, living in the society we live in, instead of saying, maybe some of this is because of the system, right? It's another way of deflecting and keeping us out of thinking in terms of why does it have to be this way? Why are our cultural values this way? Why is culture and society set up in this way? That there have to be people who are exploited and manipulated and not given what they need in order for other people to succeed, when we have so much awareness, resource, capacity? The reason is because those at the top want to continue to take more for themselves. They want to continue to dominate. They want to continue to have and hold all of the power and all of the resources. And in order to get us, the majority, to comply with that, yes, this is the thing that we're discovering. The more they can get the majority of people to comply, the more they can continue to allow the system to work the system the way that they're working it. And why do they want that? Why is their entire worldview dominance and just keeping more for themselves? Because they are at a lower level of consciousness. Like, this is what we really need to understand about the people who are at the top of our society. And these are not even necessarily the lawmakers and the people that we see, like the celebrities and all that stuff. We're talking the billionaires that we don't know their name. The people who own the people we know of. We don't see these people. The truly wealthy who run things at the top, we don't see them. Lawyers and judges work for these people. They're not the people. We don't see them because, again, they understand that exposing themselves would be completely stupid. They hide away in their sections of the society that we don't have access to. And they continue to pump out this propaganda of you're not good enough, you're not enough, you're not doing it. The problem lies with you. Every man for himself. Cutthroat is how we do it. This is what success looks like. So that we will continue to comply with a shitty system and not question the system because we're too busy questioning ourselves or fighting for ourselves, right? And it's set up so that a lot of us are literally fighting for ourselves. We're literally don't have enough. We are literally not safe. We are literally in a place where if we're not burning ourselves out at work and we're not doing way more than we need to just keep our heads above water, we don't keep our heads above water. And in a society where we have so much wealth pooling at the top, where we have billionaires, that is completely unnecessary. That is completely unnecessary. There is absolutely no reason that anyone in the Western world should not have a home, should not have access to food, should not have access to education or health care. When we have literal billionaires, right? Just take a step back and think about that for 1 second. There is absolutely no logical reason why, if a billionaire is a billionaire because of the people who work for them, because they are exploiting the labor and the time and the society of the people who are doing the actual work to create the goods that humanity needs, which is what is happening, that those people should be exploited to the point where they don't have what they need. Like, we literally have people who work full time, who work more than full time, and do not make enough money to afford to live. and we say it's because you're working a low-level job. That is indoctrination. There is no reason that if someone is working a job, there's demand for it, that they should then not be given a reasonable quality of life in exchange for that work. That is insane. And yet that's normal in our culture. And again, we are trained to see that as their fault. You're not a high-level earner. You need to up-level yourself. But then again, right, if everyone did that, and we had no more janitors, and we had no more people who, maintain our roads, do the garbage collection, society would fall apart. We need people doing these things. And yet we don't value their service. And then we'll go and pay a celebrity millions and millions of dollars to sing a song. Do you see what I'm saying? We are completely indoctrinated into this system that values what has no value, that does not value life, and that traumatizes everybody. Do I propose UBI? Again, it's not about these simple solutions. Maybe UBI would be something. But the real thing is equal distribution. Like a changing of the system in general. It's the foundational value system of our culture has to change. From consumption and production being the number one thing that is celebrated, and more always being better for those who already have enough, and blaming people who don't have enough as though it's just a choice they're making, and seeing the system for how it actually is. We need to start from there, and then our solutions will come. Right? We don't want to rush ahead to just so what's the answer? There isn't going to be an answer. There's going to be several things that need to change. It's going to be a process. But that's not the point of this video. What about people who mock and torture homeless people or poor people? Yeah, exactly. They're indoctrinated. That's completely inappropriate. And they don't understand the system. They are unconsciously supporting our systems of dominance and hierarchy. They have been brainwashed, propagandized into that. So looping it back to what we're talking about today. This myth that if we just love people perfectly, we're going to change the world. Here's what we need to understand about that. We can understand the systems that I just talked about. And we need to understand those systems. We need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of why we even live in a world where we are so traumatized and we are so mean to each other. And why this trauma continues to be perpetuated. Because as empathic, loving, caring people, we need to understand that it's bigger than just the individual we're looking at. It's bigger than the shitty boyfriend and the abusive coworkers and the terrible boss. It's bigger than that. We do need to see, because even this, right? And I know that a lot of people have a hard time with this, but the billionaires who are at the top of our system are abused people, and you will never change my mind about that. They have been indoctrinated into this exact same shitty dominance hierarchy. You need to abandon so much of your own humanity to be a billionaire. They have been indoctrinated from the day of their birth to be cut off from their emotions and cut off from their bodies and cut off from humanity in order to maintain what they're maintaining. Right? At the very, very top, we see abused people. And that, again, is why there is truth to this idea of being loving and seeing people in their pain and understanding that we don't want to be like that. We don't want to perpetuate it. And we need to be realistic about the world we're living in and our humanity. So, like I said, there's the system level. And when we look at the system level, what that shows us is that generally speaking, right, when you go out into the world, the most important thing that you can do with the people you just generally interact with on a day-to-day basis, the cashier, the people you sit next to on the bus, the janitor who's cleaning up in front of you, be kind. Always be kind. As much as you can, understand that you absolutely can be an antidote to this in terms of your day-to-day actions. When you are the kind of person who lets someone sit down on the bus when you can see that they need it more than you, that you can look your cashier in the eye and genuinely ask them how their day is going. That we have the power to start to shift things by absolutely being loving and caring, generally speaking. Okay, so there's that. There's the how we behave in general towards people as loving, kind, empathic people who want a different kind of world. There are the things that we can do, okay? And this is why I talk about this so much. When we have found our stability in life, we have enough money, we are technically okay, don't take more. Don't get caught in the way that culture says you need to keep leveling up. You need to be richer. You need to be on top of every trend. You need to buy new clothes every season. You need to do all of this. Don't. Literally learn where you can start to check out of this system that requires exploitation in order to keep going. Be different. Don't live your life for production and consumption. Those of us in the middle, we have so much power to combat this system by simply stopping, not taking more than we need. Right? It's not even about charity and giving back and being a good person who has all this stuff and then decides where you're going to redistribute it. No. Make more room for others by not taking more than you need. Really, like this self-love work, the whole mystery school is all about seeing what are we valuing and why are we going for more. And this idea that like learning to love yourself is selfish. It isn't. Because when you learn to love yourself, when you truly learn to value what has value. You are going to start to see where you are being manipulated by the system into, right? I have to keep doing more. I have to keep buying more things. I have to keep doing more navel gazing. I have to keep doing more spiritual retreats, and I have to do. No, you don't. It's a distraction. Find your enough and then live your life. Stop taking more than you need. Okay, and this is not a message for everybody, because there are truly people out there who do not have enough. And I am not telling you to go with less than you need. I am not telling you to sacrifice yourself. These are two very different things. What I am saying is when you have found your enough, you are genuinely okay, stop. Stop. Learn to stop. Learn to value who you are right now. Learn to spend your time doing things other than self-improvement, going for higher goals, acquiring more things. Take your humanity back from the system. This is how we start to untangle. This is what being a true empath is, in my opinion. You see where you have enough and you stop taking more than that. Because you realize in order for that to happen, someone has to be exploited. The people who say that there's enough abundance on our planet for everyone to be a millionaire, full of shit. Not true. Not true. There's absolutely more than enough for all of us to live comfortably, for all of us to be well. And in a society where we understand that it's not about gathering as much for yourself as you can so that you can survive, but if we had like actual equitable systems, you wouldn't have to be a millionaire to have security. Do you see what I'm saying? Find your enough and stop and really start to realize how much society is treating you like you don't matter and you're not good enough and you're not doing what you should be doing if you're not going for more. And start to understand how much that is propaganda and manipulation. That is not reality. You are being trained to hate yourself. Trained to see yourself as never enough. So that you will continue to participate in an abusive system. We really want to be empaths who change how people are being abused. We gotta look systems level. That's our biggest impact. Where can you not take more than you need? Where can you stop participating in this idea that you're not good enough and you need to do more and have more and be more when you really don't? That's how we start to turn things around. Reconnect with your humanity and start to live from your humanity. And then when it comes to our day-to-day relationships, with our daily interactions with the people that are like our bosses and our coworkers and our spouses and our friends and our partners and our lovers, in those relationships, again, the question is not, am I being loving and empathic enough? Because that will be confusing. The real question we need to be asking ourselves is, how much of both of our humanities is being acknowledged and validated in this relationship? Because you sacrificing your humanity to try to love somebody else is not the way we're going to change the world. So there's how we treat the world in general, And then there's how we treat people in our individual relationships. And these two things are two different things. And we need to be able to wrap our minds around that. So generally speaking, we have unconditional love. With the guy you're never going to see again who spit on your shoe, send him a blessing, let him go on his way. Right? That is you just like, I'm not going to fight him. I'm not going to whatever, right? I'm going to be different, because it's not a perpetual thing. It's not, that person isn't going to come back and abuse you over and over and over. That's how we treat things in general. But that is not how we behave in our personal relationships. We need to understand that there's a distinction between how we treat and act generally and how we treat and act in our one-to-ones. Because in our one-to-one, it's a totally different situation. We need to be able to be complex enough to say, unconditional love is what I give general society. I see how everyone is hurting and we're all exploited, and I see the system and it's really fucked up. And I'm going to just be nice to the people who cross my path. And I'm going to learn where my enough is. And I'm going to take only what I need. And I'm going to do that. And then when it comes to my personal relationships, my humanity has to be a factor. When it comes to my personal relationships, this is the big key. We don't sacrifice ourselves for people who don't want to change. There is a massive, massive difference between walking in unconditional love, where we let someone treat us like shit over and over and over and over again, thinking that our love is one day going to heal them, when they have no intention of changing. When they are brainwashed and they are indoctrinated and they are traumatized and they have been through what they've been through, and you are just a person they are just going to suck and suck and suck and suck and suck from, that is not healing for anybody. That is allowing abuse. You do not deserve to be abused, ever. I need you to hear this. You do not deserve to be abused, ever. Ever. Never once. It is never okay. I don't care what you're wearing. I don't care how you're acting. I don't care what you're doing, where you are, who you're with, what the situation. There is no context in which it is okay that you be abused, that you be treated as less than human. That is never okay. And that is the foundational truth that we need to walk around with. It is never okay. Never. 0 times. And our power systems, our hierarchies, our abuses of power systems that are set up to protect abusers will tell you, well, what did you do? How did you ask for it? How was it your fault? And especially if you're empathic, and especially if you're sensitive, well, it's not their fault. They were abused. They're hurting. Okay. Absolutely, this is true. I can see that. And it does not justify abuse, ever. Ever, 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 ever. So if we start from that place, it just doesn't matter. There's no context in which you deserve to be abused. if we start from that place, this is how we start to determine what we are going to do with the people in our lives. We don't live with unconditional love in our one-to-one relationships. That is not a healthy way to be. We can have unconditional love in our hearts and in our feelings, right? We can understand that someone is abusive or someone is harmful or someone is rude or whatever they are because of their pain. We can understand that, right? We don't have to move from a place of I hate this person and I want bad things for them and fuck them for hurting me and all of these things, unless we feel that way. And a lot of the times, if we have been continually abused by somebody and we've been convincing ourselves that it was my fault and I just need to love them more, we are going to go through a period of anger and resentment and hating that person, and that's a healthy thing to go through. That's helping us move back into our empowerment and back into the truth. So we got to make room for that we're going to get angry. So find a safe place to process that anger. Find a safe place. And a lot of the time, what we really need to do, the most healing thing we can do for everybody, including the person who's abusing us, is to take a step back, to remove ourselves from the situation, to no longer allow ourselves to be abused. Because when we are adults, we are not someone else's caregiver. We are not their therapist. We are not there to be their perfect, unconditional, loving parent that they never had that's going to heal their inner child wound. That is not our job. So we can be loving and we can provide a safe space. And again, understanding that there are no hard and fast rules here, that we need to determine for ourselves. Is this relationship more toxic than not? Is this person that is hurting me and harming me actually wanting to change? And words don't matter, okay? People who are abusive or shitty, who are telling you, okay, I'm going to be different. I see it. I get it, right? Like maybe we stand up for ourselves. We say, hey, you hurt me. We say your behavior didn't make me feel good. And maybe they validate you and they acknowledge it. But they are making no effort to change. It is not your job to stay. It is not your job to try to heal them. It is not your job to just keep loving and giving them chances. It is not your job. You are not their caregiver. You are not their therapist. You can love them, you can see them in their pain, and you can say, enough is enough. You can determine for yourself, okay, this person is sometimes shitty. This person sometimes treats me not great, and it's just human, right? I'm also shitty sometimes. I also have bad behavior sometimes. I also lash out or say mean things or whatever. And we're just human and we're just being shitty to each other. And it's not really rising to the level of abuse. It's just rising to the level of we both need to mature a little. And you can determine for yourself, I'm going to stay. I'm going to be loving. I'm going to be compassionate. Because this isn't self-sacrifice. This is just normal human relationships where both of us are imperfect. So there's that side of it. And only you can tell for yourself where that line is. I can't tell you, a therapist can't tell you, a healer can't tell you. You need to determine for yourself, where's your line? Between I'm being abused over and over and over again by someone who's hurt and I can see their pain, but they are not going to change. They can't change. They're saying they want to change, but they're not changing. And this is now just me setting myself up to get abused over and over again. and I need to leave, or I need to set up a strong boundary, and being able to determine where it's just like, okay, this is just, right, two people being not that great, but I can give them a chance. I can love them. And again, we need to understand that in our one-to-one relationships, that first thing, you never, ever, 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 ever deserve to be abused. And you get to decide what abuse is for you. You get to decide what your level of tolerance is and what it isn't. No one can tell you that. You get to decide if it's too much or not. And you can change your mind. I'm giving you permission for that. You can think something was fine and later be like, actually, it's not. And then you can set up a boundary and you can walk away. You are not their caregiver. This is the big thing. As an empath and as someone who loves people, it is not your job to be the loving parent, because that's what we're doing. When we're saying I'm going to be unconditionally loving to people who are abusive to me, we are really saying I'm going to be the perfect caregiver that they never had, that they should have had. I'm going to be the one to be there every time they do something shitty, to love them and see them in their light and try to help guide them to understanding why what they did wasn't great and into like some personal growth moment, and we're going to have a beautiful realization and all of these things. That is not your job. If you want to do that, you can, but you need to understand that is not your responsibility. As a kind, loving, empathic person, it is not your job to be someone's caregiver. You need to start from the base understanding. We all need to walk around with this. As empathic people, I am not anyone's caregiver unless you are actually someone's caregiver, right? Unless it is your actual literal child. You are not there to be the unconditional loving presence that they never had. Now, as an adult, that's their job. You can model that in how you treat yourself. How you treat yourself, again, is different than how you treat other people. We have unconditional loving love towards ourselves, not as a way of letting ourselves off the hook when we're doing shitty things, but as a way of understanding where those shitty patterns came from, why that's going on, and then making ourselves feel safe enough that we can evolve those shitty habits. That's why we love ourselves unconditionally. But we do not love others that same way. We are taking responsibility for being our own caregiver. We are not taking responsibility for being the caregivers of others. And if anyone tells you that it is your job to unconditionally love other people, they are lost. That is not true. That is not what is going to change reality. People who want to do better and who want to change do. We need to understand that, okay? You are no one's caregiver. You are no other adult's caregiver. Sacrificing your humanity to love someone else is not unconditional love. That's perpetuating cycles of abuse. And you don't deserve that. It is our own job as adults to unconditionally love ourselves. And people who want to change, change. People who actually want to change, do. They make effort. They actually, you don't have to keep calling them out. They become aware of their own behavior and they change it. So if that's not happening in your one-to-one relationships, you are no longer responsible. It is not your job. And even if they are changing, you still get to decide, is it worth it for me to stay or not? And do not let any other spiritual person gaslight you into any other way of thinking. Do not let the spirituality, self-help, personal growth world gaslight you into thinking you deserved the abuse, that it's your karma, that you attracted it. No, you never deserve it. It's not your fault. You are allowed to set a boundary whenever you want. You are not their caregiver. You are not their caregiver. It is not your job. Do not sacrifice your own humanity for anybody else, because that is not healing anybody. That is just allowing abuse to continue, and you don't deserve that. And then again, if you're stuck in a situation where you can't safely get out and you don't have autonomy, that this conversation can't touch on that. I am not qualified to tell you what to do. If you're in a truly abusive situation where you can't get out, you need help. Okay, you need real help. And if you actually can't set a boundary, if you're truly not safe, that's a different conversation. And I want to make that clear. This conversation is when we can stop being friends with somebody. We can break up with somebody. They might be mean in their words, but we're safe enough to do it. Okay? If we're truly not safe, reach out for help. That's a different situation. You don't deserve abuse. You never deserve abuse. It is not your fault. You've probably been conditioned that it is your fault and that you're asking for it, and you need to keep being loving. And again, no, you need help to get out. As empathic, loving people, we're still going to experience anger when we realize we've been abused. We've been hurt, and we've been trained to see it as our fault or that we should keep sacrificing ourselves. Don't be surprised when you turn angry and resentful. That's a part of the healing process. When that starts to happen, that's a good sign that you need space. You need to remove yourself from the situation, and you need to process that anger. Do not shut it down. Do not push it away. Again, it doesn't mean you have to break up with this person. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Whatever space looks like for you to process that. And sometimes we come back and we work it out, and sometimes we don't. Every situation is different. But don't be surprised if for a long time you've been convincing yourself and been convinced by others that you have to just keep taking it. That when you finally realize, no, I don't. I'm not their mother. I'm not their father. I'm not their therapist. They're an adult. They clearly don't actually want to change. They're not changing. They just keep hurting me, no matter what I say and no matter what I do. I'm angry. Yes, you should be. That anger is good. That anger is healing. That anger is positive. Allow that anger to help you get out, or stand up for yourself, or do whatever you need to do. We are not here to be unconditionally loving in our relationships. Okay, so hopefully that was like the whole big spectrum. We understand why people are shitty, because our systems are shitty. People are immature. We've been trained to be ruthless and horrible and disconnected from our humanity. And that makes us treat each other like shit in our individual relationships. So to what degree can you be loving and gracious and empathic that doesn't ask you to sacrifice your humanity? How can you be in the world that's loving and unconditionally loving? And then how are you in your relationships where it's much more complicated and your humanity counts too? These are two different contexts. You are no one's caregiver. You never deserve abuse. If you start from those foundations, what choices do you want to make? Your humanity counts. You never deserve abuse. You are no one's caregiver. You can love them and wish them well, but you don't have to put up with being harmed over and over and over again by someone who does not want to change. And how do you know if someone wants to change? They change. It is simple as that. When someone wants to change, they do. They don't just keep telling you they're going to, they do. They don't keep doing it and apologizing, they do. So if that's not happening, you get to say no. And don't be surprised when your anger comes up. That's empowerment. It's trying to help you. Process it so that it can help you set your boundaries. Realize where you need to say no. Realize where you need to walk away. Sometimes people are just shitty. We're just shitty sometimes, and we love each other through it. Okay? Not everything is abuse. Not everything is a reason to not love somebody. We're all imperfect. We all hurt each other. That's reality. So again, you determine for yourself, where is it too much and where is it not too much? But you never deserve abuse, and you are no one's caregiver. So again, if you start with that context, hopefully it helps you find your clarity. Okay? Okay. So yeah. For more stuff like this, check out my YouTube, check out my blogs, perceptiontrainer.com. Check out my mystery school, the Aaliyah Mystery School. One-on-one coaching. I do all those things. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week. Okay?